Now I'm going to demonstrate how to make a nested tween in Flash. In order to do this, you're going to have an object or a thing with separate parts. To find out how to do that, look at my demonstration on how to prepare an object for a nested tween in Photoshop. And that's a earlier demonstration. So the first thing we have to do is get that prepared object. So I have to go to File, Import, Import to Library. So I'm going to just dump it in the library, not onto the stage right now. And I'm going to go into my Assignment 1 folder and find Snowy Egret Nested. And I'm going to hit Open. Import dialog box, it says what do you want to import, and all I want to do is import the parts. I don't want to import the whole thing. Right now the whole thing has no check mark next to it, which means when it imports there's nothing going to be in this section, but the wings will be there and the body will be there, but separately. So I click OK. And I have a new import. I have the Snowy Egret Nested, which is a graphic symbol. We don't want that. What we want is the separate parts that come as layer 1, 2, and 3. If I had labeled them in Photoshop, I wouldn't have layer 1, 2, and 3. Instead, I would have what these symbolize, which would actually be more helpful. But what I can do right now is I can check just by clicking on each one of these. That's clearly the right wing, that's the left wing, and that's the body. So those are going to be important to us. I also want to point out that right now on the stage I have a background and I have a tree in front of the background. This is the tree right here, and so I'm going to be animating in relationship to that. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to make a brand new graphic symbol, and then we're going to import all three of these elements into the brand new graphic symbol. What we need to do is go to Insert, New Symbol. We want to make sure that it's a graphic symbol, and we're going to call this Nested Egret. Of course, I have to spell that correctly. Then we hit OK. Right now I'm in a symbol, and the reason why you can tell you're in a symbol is if you look up at the top here, I'm circling the cursor around here, you'll see Scene 1, but then you'll also see within Scene 1 the nested egret symbol. The other way you can tell is notice that there is no working stage, instead it's all white. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is the fact that the symbol that I've created has its own timeline with frames, and that's going to be very important in terms of making a nested symbol. Remember, I have 3 parts, so I'm going to actually make 3 layers down here. To create 3 layers, I got 1 layer, hit it again, and hit it again. And remember, in pairing the nested symbol, I said that the layer order is important. What I'm going to have is the body on top, and the body is going to cover the wings a little bit so that when the wings flap, what's going to happen is it's not going to break or look overly artificial. So I'm going to label these even before I put anything in them. I'm going to put body. I'm going to put left wing or LT wing. And I'm going to put right wing or RT wing. So I'm going to start with the body, and I'm going to find the body. I remember that was layer 3 is the body. And I want layer 3 on the top, so I'm going to just drag that onto the area for the nested symbol. I can move it around all I want. And now we have to import the right wing and the left wing. First, I'm going to go down and go to the left wing and drag the left wing in, which is right here. Actually, yes, drag the left wing, put it into place. Actually, I'm moving the right. Try to get it as close as possible. All right, now I'm going to go to the right wing. Make sure again to click on the layers. I'm going to find the right wing, and I'm going to drag it onto the stage as well and move it into place. Right now, notice what's happening. Oh, I'm going to save, sure, not a problem. Right now, the body is kind of blocking my access to this wing. So I'm going to just lock up the body for a second so I can grab the wing and put it in place. Okay, and I'm going to go to the left wing, make sure that's in the right place. Okay, that looks about right. And this one, that also looks good. All right, so I have a timeline, and right now the timeline has a body on the top and one wing in each layer below it. The next thing I'm going to have to do is convert all of these objects into graphic symbols, because the graphic symbols will allow me to use a motion tween. So I'm going to go to each body part. I'm going to start with the body. I'm going to unlock it so I can do it. I can tell I'm on the body because it immediately goes to the body layer. I'm going to go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, or hit F8 key, and I'm going to call this body to match the layer. I have a graphic symbol here. I hit OK. Okay, so now we have the body as a graphic symbol. I'm going to go to the right wing and do the same thing. Modify, Convert to Symbol, and I mean this is left wing, I said right wing. I'm going to type left wing. Again, graphic symbol, OK. I'm going to go to the right wing, do the same thing. I'm going to hit F8 this time just to show that that's a good way to do it. Right wing. Alright, so now I have all of my objects on the stage lined up where I want. I have everything turned into graphic symbols. The last thing I have to do before I move anything is I have to move these little dots. What these are anchor points or pivot points. In order to do that, I'm going to have to go from my selection tool to my free transform tool. And once the free transform tool has been selected, I'm going to drag this pivot point to a different location. And the reason why I'm going to do that is, remember, this wing is going to pivot around something. If I had it in the middle, right, this would be a very unnatural pivot indeed, right? That doesn't look good at all. So instead, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to move this down to a much more decent pivot point. And as you can tell, this is a lot more natural looking in terms of what a bird will do. I'm not saying it's perfectly natural, but it's more natural. I'm going to do the same thing to the other wing. I'm going to bring the pivot point to a more decent location. It doesn't even have to be in this bounding box. It could be outside the bounding box if that looks better. Okay, so long as I don't move this too much, that should be decent. For each one of these, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to shift click. That means that I'm going to select all of the layers, and then I'm going to hit Control key, and I'm going to hit Create Motion Tween. What it does by default is it calculates a second's worth of frames. In this case, there are 12 frames per second in this animation, so it goes out 12 frames, and it brings everything out to 12 frames and allows me to tween. All right, I'm going to tween one area at a time. Now at this point, I'm going to lock the body so it doesn't get in my way. And basically what I want to do is I want to have this wings beat back and forth. So my goal is to move the wings up and then come to a center position, go back, and to the center position again. Ultimately what you want is on the first frame of your animation, you want it to be relatively close to the last frame of the animation, so there's this kind of smooth movement. So I'm going to take this object and I'm going to move it up a little bit, move it a few frames in, move it up, and I'm going to do the same thing to this wing. Notice when I click on the wings, it naturally goes to the right layer. So that's one position. The next position down, I'm going to grab this, maybe bring it a little back, and I'm going to just advance it a couple frames, and now I'm going to go even further back. I think I'm going to bring it further back still. All right, that's looking a little unnatural, but we're going to just do it anyway. Bring that to here. Bring it further closer together. And finally at the very end, have it almost back where it originally is. See what happens. See what we do from here. Okay, so I have this animation now of the wings basically moving back and forth. And I will see, by playing it, how natural it looks. So that's what happens. So we're going to live with that for now. So there's my animation. Right down here is a loop tool, so I can actually press the loop tool, bring the loop out to the full animation, and press play and see what it looks like repeated. It's looking fairly decent at this point. Alright, so I'm going to hit pause. Alright, so I have my animation and it's under nested egret as a symbol. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to scene 1 and I'm going to put the nested symbol into this animation and kind of show you how that works. I'm going to turn off looping for now, and I might back up just a little bit. Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a new layer for my egret. And I'm going to put it, I'm going to call egret. And notice I've actually put the egret behind the tree. Again, layer order is important, so when the egret comes flying through, it's going to actually fly through the tree. All right, with that selected, I take my nested egret and I put it off the stage for a little bit. I resize it. All right, and I'm going to turn that into a motion tween, so I'm going to click here, control click, create motion tween, and I'm going to go further out, and I'm going to fly my bird past the tree. See what that looks like. Alright, so now you get to see what this looks like. So I'm going to play it. Alright, so you get the sense of what happens with a motion tween. Let's scoop in a little bit closer so you can see what's happening. Alright, there's a close-up view. I'll play it again. Alright, so the bird is beating its wings. It might be beating it a little slow. If you wanted it to speed up, what you would have to do is go back and speed up the process. So right now it has a kind of this majestic flying. And you can tell it's doing two things at once now. It's beating its wings and moving forward. Nested motion tweens can be used for all sorts of things. It can be for lip movement, it can be for a walk cycle, anything where there's two movements happening, like a forward progression and something happening to the object itself. Once you've tested it out, like I said, you can actually go back, double click on the nested tween, which would open up the nested tween, and you can play around with it, like experiment with making the wings beat faster. And the way you'd do that is you'd actually shorten the tween up a little bit. So I'm going to shorten it just as opposed to a full second. I'm going to do, a third of a second, and see if I like that better. So I've changed my nested tween. I'm going to go back. Okay, so it's beating its wings a little faster, and that might be what we're going for.